Ibn al-Haytham, the master of optics and the scientific method. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. In the grand narrative of Islamic intellectual history, few figures cast a shadow as long and as profound as Ibn al-Haytham. May Allah be pleased with him, Le Polymath, whose genius laid the very foundations of modern science. Known in the West by his Latinized name Alhazen, he was a scholar of such intellectual rigor and spiritual depth that his contributions continue to resonate a millennium after his time. He was a master of optics, mathematics, and astronomy, but his most monumental contribution was the development of a systematic and empirical scientific method, a revolutionary approach to knowledge that transformed human inquiry forever. For Ibn al-Haytham, the study of the physical world was not a secular endeavor, but a profound spiritual journey, a form of worship that led to the knowledge of the Creator through the meticulous observation and experimentation of his creation. Ibn al-Haytham's work, particularly his magnum opus, Kitab al-Manazir, the Book of Optics, marks a pivotal moment in human history. It was a moment when the pursuit of knowledge moved away from the passive acceptance of ancient authorities and towards the active, skeptical, and experimental verification of hypotheses. His relentless questioning, his demand for empirical evidence, and his use of mathematics to prove his theories were an expression of a profound theological conviction that the universe, as a creation of Allah, operates according to rational and discoverable laws, and that the human intellect, as a divine gift, has a sacred duty to seek out these laws. His skepticism was not a sign of disbelief, but a profound spiritual humility, a recognition that human knowledge is fallible and must be rigorously tested. Our discourse today will be a comprehensive, structural, exhaustive, scholarly exploration of the life, work, and spiritual vision of Ibn al-Haytham. May Allah be pleased with him. We will argue that his contributions were revolutionary because he pioneered an empirical, experimental, scientific method, and that this method was a profound expression of a spiritual imperative to seek truth through observation and reason, a path to understanding the signs of awe in the universe. We will delve into his life, his famous claim to regulate the Nile River, and his most famous work, Kitab al-Manazir. We will meticulously unpack his theory of vision and the scientific method he developed to prove it. This is not just a lecture on an ancient scientist. It is a profound journey into the heart of a master who saw no conflict between faith and reason, a master who used the tools of science to reveal the spiritual truths of the universe. Part 1. The Scholar and His Intellectual Climate. From Busra to Cairo. The life of Ibn al-Haytham, may Allah be pleased with him, is a story of a brilliant mind shaped by a period of immense intellectual and political upheaval. He was born in Busra, in modern-day Iraq, in 965 CE, a city that was a hub of intellectual activity and a center for both the religious and secular sciences. His early education was comprehensive and rigorous, and he excelled in philosophy, mathematics, and medicine. He was a product of a culture that placed a profound value on ilm knowledge, a culture that was actively engaged in the translation, study, and synthesis of ancient Greek, Roman, and Persian texts. His intellectual journey, however, was not without its challenges. The most famous anecdote from his life is his bold and audacious claim to be able to regulate the flow of the Nile River. He made this claim while in his native Basra. The news of his genius soon reached the ears of the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim, a ruler known for both his intellectual curiosity and his unpredictable cruelty. Al-Hakim, who ruled from Cairo, invited Ibn al-Haytham to his court and challenged him to fulfill his promise. Ibn al-Haytham, who was a master of both theoretical and applied sciences, soon realized that the scale of the Nile River was far too great for any of the engineering tools of his time to control. He saw no alternative but to feign madness to avoid the wrath of the unpredictable caliph. For over a decade he lived under house arrest, a period of forced seclusion that, for a man of his intellectual caliber, was a blessing in disguise. It was during this period of quiet solitude that he dedicated himself to his studies and produced some of his most monumental works, including his masterpiece, Kitab al-Manazir. The intellectual climate of the 10th and 11th centuries was a fertile ground for a mind like his. It was a time when the ancient knowledge of the Greeks, particularly the works of Euclid and Ptolemy, were being actively studied and debated. The prevailing theory of vision, for example, was the extromission theory, which held that the eye emitted rays to perceive objects, a theory that had been held for centuries and was championed by the ancient masters. But the intellectual spirit of the time, and the spiritual conviction of scholars like Ibn al-Haytham, was one of skepticism and empirical verification. The Islamic scholars did not passively accept the knowledge of the ancients. They critically engaged with it, corrected it, and built upon it. This spirit of skepticism and empirical verification was, for Ibn al-Haytham, a profound spiritual duty. For him, the mind was a gift from all, and the pursuit of knowledge was an act of worship. His skepticism was not a sign of intellectual arrogance, but a profound spiritual humility. A recognition that human knowledge is fallible and must be rigorously tested. He saw the universe as a book of divine signs, and he saw the pursuit of knowledge as a sacred quest to read that book. His intellectual rigor was a form of spiritual discipline, a way of purifying the soul through a relentless commitment to truth. Part 2. Kitab al-Manazir, the Book of Optics and the New Theory of Vision. The heart of Ibn al-Haytham's, may Allah be pleased with him, contribution to science is his magnum opus, Kitab al-Manazir, the Book of Optics. This was a monumental work that revolutionized the understanding of vision, light, and the very nature of scientific inquiry. The book, which was a masterpiece of both theoretical and experimental science, was a direct and powerful refutation of the prevailing extromission theory of vision that had been held for centuries. The extromission theory, championed by the ancient masters Euclid and Ptolemy, held that the eye emitted invisible rays that traveled to the object being perceived. Ibn al-Haytham, through a series of meticulous experiments and a rigorous application of logic and mathematics, systematically dismantled this theory. He argued that the extromission theory was logically and physically impossible. He pointed out that if the eye emitted rays, it would be a source of immense power, a power that would be a source of immense pain, and that vision would be a painful and exhausting process. He also pointed out that the eye is a very delicate and sensitive organ, and that it would be impossible for it to emit rays of such power. He then proposed his own revolutionary theory, the intromission theory, which correctly posited that vision occurs when rays of light enter the eye from an external object. He argued that the eye is a passive recipient of light, not an active emitter of rays. He provided a series of meticulous experiments to prove his theory. He used a darkroom al-Bayt al-Mulim, which was essentially the first camera obscura, to demonstrate that light travels in straight lines, and that it is the light from an object that enters the eye, not the other way around. He used a series of mirrors and lenses to demonstrate the laws of reflection and refraction, and he used a series of mathematical proofs to support his theories. The book was a masterpiece of both theoretical and experimental science, a book that not only proposed a new theory of vision, but also provided the empirical evidence to support it. The book's profound and lasting impact is a testament to its intellectual rigor and its systematic approach. It became a foundational text for later scientists and philosophers, and it was a work that would have a profound and lasting impact on the intellectual history of both the Islamic world and Europe. It's a work of Ibn al-Haytham, therefore, became a crucial link between the scientific traditions of the past and the scientific revolutions of the future. But for Ibn al-Haytham, the ultimate purpose of his work was not to advance the cause of science, but to advance the cause of divine knowledge. He saw the study of light and vision as a way of understanding the divine name, and Nur the light, a profound and beautiful manifestation of Allah's power and order. Part 3. The Scientific Method, the birth of empirical science. While Ibn al-Haytham's, may Allah be pleased with him, contributions to optics are monumental, my significant and enduring legacy is the development of a systematic and empirical scientific method. He was the first to articulate and consistently apply a method of inquiry that is the foundation of modern science. His method was a radical departure from the passive acceptance of ancient authority and a move towards a new era of active, skeptical, and experimental inquiry. The key components of his method were skepticism. He began all his inquiries with a deep sense of skepticism towards the established authorities, skepticism that was not a sign of disrespect, but a profound intellectual humility. He believed that the path to truth lay not in the blind acceptance of authority, but in the rigorous and meticulous testing of all hypotheses. He openly challenged the works of Ptolemy, and in his book, he systematically dismantled the ancient masters' theories through a series of meticulous experiments and logical proofs. This was a revolutionary act, a move away from dogmatic acceptance to empirical verification. Hypothesis. He began all his inquiries with a clear and concise hypothesis, a hypothetical explanation for a phenomenon that he would then proceed to test. He did not begin with a conclusion, but with a question that he would then seek to answer through a series of rigorous experiments. Experimentation. He was a master of experimentation. He used a dark room albeit al-mulim, a camera obscura, to demonstrate the laws of light and vision, used mirrors and lenses to demonstrate the laws of reflection and refraction. His experiments were not random or haphazard. They were carefully designed to test his hypotheses and to provide a clear and unambiguous answer to his questions. His experiments were a form of intellectual worship, a quest to know the mind of Allah through the laws of nature. Mathematical proof. He used mathematics to prove his theories. He believed that the laws of nature were mathematical in their essence, and that the only way to prove a scientific theory was to provide a rigorous and unambiguous mathematical proof. His use of mathematics was a form of intellectual rigor, a way of purifying his theories from all sources of ambiguity and error. The development of this method was, for Ibn al-Haytham, a profound spiritual practice. His pursuit of objective, verifiable truth was a form of intellectual worship, a quest to know the mind of all through the laws of nature. He saw no conflict between faith and reason, between the inner reality of the spiritual experience and the outer reality of the scientific inquiry. For him, the pursuit of science was a profound and spiritual act of worship, a way of fulfilling the Quranic command to contemplate the signs of awe in the universe. Part 4. Beyond Optics. Contributions and Enduring Legacy. The genius of Ibn al-Haytham, may Allah be pleased with him, was not confined to the field of optics alone. He was a true polymath, a master of a number of disciplines, and his contributions to other fields are also monumental. He made significant contributions to astronomy, where he wrote a book on the motion of the planets, a book that was a profound and critical engagement with the work of Ptolemy. He also made significant contributions to mathematics, where he wrote books on geometry, algebra, and number theory. His work on the properties of light, including his discoveries on the nature of reflection and refraction, were groundbreaking and would have a profound and lasting impact on the field of optics. His work was also a profound contribution to the field of psychology. He wrote a book on the psychology of perception, where he explored the relationship between the physical process of vision and the psychological process of perception. He argued that vision is not just a physical process, but a psychological one, a process that is influenced by our expectations, our memory, and our past experiences. His work on the psychology of perception was a groundbreaking contribution to the field, a contribution that would have a profound and lasting impact on the field of psychology. The profound and enduring legacy of Ibn al-Haytham, may Allah be pleased with him, is a testament to the power of a spiritual vision that is grounded in both scientific rigor and mystical contemplation. Book Kitab al-Manazir was translated into Latin in the 12th century and became a foundational text for later European scientists, including Roger Bacon and Johannes Kepler, who referred to him as Alhazen. His work on the scientific method became a model for later scientists, and his relentless skepticism, his demand for empirical evidence, and his use of mathematics to prove his theories became the foundation of modern science. In conclusion, Ibn al-Haytham, may Allah be pleased with him, was not just a scientist. He was a master of the universe, a man who saw the divine in the laws of nature and the pursuit of knowledge as an act of worship. His legacy is a living spiritual tradition that continues to inspire and challenge us to this day. He was a scholar who saw no conflict between faith and reason, a master who used the tools of science to reveal the spiritual truths of the universe. Thank you for joining us on this intellectual and spiritual journey. Please subscribe to our channel to continue our exploration of the rich and profound essence of Sufism.